Are you a prospective student who's had long-term counseling all through high school, wondering how you'll fit into TCNJ? Well, just like all the other students in your boat, you'll be left with counseling and psychological services that couldn't give a shit about you. If you need long-term counseling, you can go for a 3-week period, because after that, the mental illnesses you've been diagnosed with and medicated for the last 4 years will stop affecting your daily life, right? And if by chance you still have them after, you can always sign up for group counseling. If moving from your hometown to a dorm in a new place with a harder workload and a more complicated schedule away from the family and friends you've known your entire life wasn't enough to give you stress, CAPS does a great job at ensuring your constant one-on-one talk therapy gets changed too. Your new therapist will surely get to know you soon, even though you already opened up and got used to the new therapist you had for 3 weeks before they kicked you out. So 1 month in and we're on Therapist 2 with 5 other people. It's like a psychology class on mindfulness, so you need to learn what that is. You only have 45 minutes once a week, but you're watching videos and doing worksheets, which take up most of the time. You get to talk, you do. That's what the first 5 minutes are for. You each get a minute to reflect on your week. You better talk fast and be all right with no actual advice and feedback. Oh, this group only lasts 6 weeks, by the way. What other resources do you have, you might be thinking? Because as fun as this game of Leapfrog is, it's just before midterms, and I'm falling behind, and I'm pretty depressed. There's a clinic here? Good thing nobody told me that. I guess I'll be on the wait list until next semester. I don't need therapy during finals. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Until it's next semester, and I go to the therapist number 3 at the clinic. So no one told me about it because it's on the DL. The clinicians are grad students practicing to be family therapists, but they can practice on TCNJ students too, since they're located on campus. Everything is videotaped to review the grad students' work, but confidential. And insurance isn't needed, it's just a $10 copay, so this kind of looks like a fantastic idea, as long as you're okay with being videotaped, which I was. So finally, my own one-on-one therapist. It was great that semester, amazing really, until they announced the clinic would be closing the following semester. Now I was really stuck, and also my insurance company stopped my insurance but didn't tell me, and I went through a breakup of 3.5 years that summer. I saw my home therapist for a month once I got my insurance back, but come September, I had no one to come back to. I wish finding a therapist was easy, but there's calls to make and insurance to match, and I didn't have a car on campus, so it was October by the time I finally found a therapist. Number 4. She's amazing, but the thing with depression is it only takes a day to totally set you back. 1 day of class missed is 1 day of makeup work, and then you have other classes work, and doing the work for the class you missed that was due that day, which totally contributed to the reason you were too depressed to go to class. And tomorrow's class? Well, that work isn't done. And then you get anxious about how quickly you fall behind. And imagine this cycle for over a month while still getting over a breakup. I only saw Therapist 4 twice before I hit a giant rock and dropped a class before I was too behind on it and needed that time to make up all the other work for my other classes. I went to an intensive outpatient program, IOP. It was the second time I'd gone to one. I did in high school once. The outpatient program was 3 to 5 days a week, from 5 to 8 p.m., and I did that for 6 weeks. Yet again, though, new therapist. 3 actually, one-on-one, group, and a group intern. But they were all great. I learned that stuff I learned in CAPS group again, DBT, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, but instead of 45 minutes once a week, it was 3 hours 3 times a week. So we actually had processing time, and time to put the new lessons into practice, with constant follow-ups, and music and art days and yoga, and I got bused there. That ended during winter break, but it helped a lot. And soon enough, I was back on campus. Turns out the clinic didn't close. There was a sit-in because students were like, wait, hold on, we want resources. Why are you taking away more when we barely have anything to start? Fuck, said the administration. They caught on. So I went back to the clinic. So sophomore spring, and I'm on therapist number 8, I think. Don't you love consistency? Therapist 8 was a grad student who loved art as much as I do. Positive, we talked about it and my classwork. Negative, I didn't end up processing anything else. So the following fall, I was on therapist 9, who was a TCNJ alum. She was very sweet, but she was too soft. I talked, and she didn't have the ability to see through me and actually advise me. I missed the therapist I had before the IOP. I was also on a journey of medication. I had a bad psychiatrist in high school and a worse one at the start of college, but luckily at the IOP I was given another psychiatrist who took me on full-time, and she's amazing. She actually listened to what I said rather than just shoved medicine in my mouth and told me if I spoke that she had other patients outside and that she wasn't my therapist. Anyway, Halfway through the semester, I left the clinic and went back to the therapist I saw before I went to the IOP. And she's great, off campus, but I had a car at that point. So all was good. CAPS didn't help me, but maybe they could help someone else. Or actually, no, they would make things worse. Like at the start of the semester, when a guy I knew was probably suicidal, and my friends and I were worried. We thought about contacting the dean of students to put in a referral, but I thought maybe it would be best to wait and figure out more info first. Skip ahead, got more info, he needed help, and his other friend put in the referral. It didn't go well, though. It got much worse. Because what TC&J didn't mention is that when you mention that someone is suicidal, they need to cover their ass. So they sent cops to his house, who banged on the door and said, "Someone you live with said you're suicidal. Are you?" Expecting him to say, "What? Oh yes, I am. Thanks for asking." In that meeting with the dean, it was more of an interrogation. About his mental health, you wish it was about unrelated issues. Because when you get news someone is suicidal, barging into their house, accusing them of their thoughts, and then interrogating them about issues unrelated to their mental health is definitely the way to go. Pat yourselves on the back, TC&J. You and your staff handled this really well. Maybe that was a one-time thing? No. A friend of mine asked another to put in a suicidal referral for her, which resulted in a res ed director banging on her door, asking her if she was going to hurt herself. Maybe banging on people's doors isn't the proper way to approach people feeling alone about their thoughts because of the stigma of mental health in society. You'd think TC&J would hire a professional full-time one-on-one therapist, because therapy is not just for those with mental illness. It's helpful to anyone. You talk things out and get helpful advice about how to better react to and address life issues. But here, therapy is for no one. And what really hurts is that there have been 3 suicides here in 2 years. And the emails that get sent out, listing campus resources, say go to CAPS. Well, maybe no one wants to go to CAPS, because CAPS doesn't help. Maybe when people do go to CAPS, they don't feel welcomed or cared for, but intimidated and insecure. Instead of caring about the mental health of its students, TC&J cares about its reputation and constructing new buildings, which is great, unless the students who would be in those buildings don't live on to be in them because there's no place to turn when things get hard. Hopefully, you just don't need counseling to begin with. But if you do, that you only need it for 3 weeks. And if you need it for more, let's hope you like quick group sessions that also teach you psychology rather than letting you process. And if that isn't enough, maybe you've heard about the clinic and are on their list, and are okay with counseling from students while being videotaped. Or maybe you actually have good insurance and a car and can go off campus. Because if you don't have the time, money, and resources for off-campus counseling, well, you're fucked. But most likely, that's ridiculous, and you don't have time or energy to put into organizing that. You'll probably pretend you're okay and just silently cry yourself to sleep. Because if you haven't had counseling before, it's really vulnerable to have to seek out your own off-campus resources, which you need to do for good counseling because TC&J doesn't offer what students need. So until they do, you'll be like every other TC&J student. Yes, you will fit in, don't worry. We're all stressed, and we're all left alone to deal with it. Come to TC&J!